Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio. It's me, Desiree, and today I'm just going to practice making some small cylinders on the wheel. I'm not going to make them for any particular purpose, this is just practice. So thanks for joining me, let's get cracking. So to start with, wet your clay well and inspect it to make sure that it's of a fairly good quality. If you're a beginner and you're just starting to work in pottery, you will probably be working with reworked clay, and you'll just be practicing with it and you'll be wrecking a lot of pots, and for that reason you won't be working with the best quality of clay. But make sure that your clay at least is of a fairly good consistency. And you can check this actually by cutting through the clay ball with a cutting wire or a cutting line and checking whether there are any air bubbles or funny bits in the clay. Okay, let's get going. So we always start with wetting our bat a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. That does two things. It shows you where the center of the bat is, the center of your wheel, and it also helps the clay stick to the wheel head. Just something about sitting at the wheel. You'll see that I'm sitting close to the wheel. I'm really hugging the wheel with my legs. You sit in such a way that you can actually look at your ball of clay from the top. So we start with slapping the clay down on the wheel quite firmly, wetting your hands not too much, just so that the clay doesn't stick. And then we start by pressing down on the sides. We call this making a skirt. So that ensures that the clay sticks to the bat. So you have no spaces between the clay and the bat here. Now we need to center our clay, and that's an extremely important part of throwing something on the wheel. The way I was taught, you simply centered the clay on the wheel just like this. But that's not exactly foolproof, and these days most people do a process for centering which you call cone up and cone down, that I'll show you. So holding your hands against the wheel, spin your wheel quickly and push your hands together so that the clay goes up. You can just make sure that you have all the clay from the bottom, bring it up, and now we're ready to cone down. You push the cone slightly to one side, bring it down. The important part is the palm of this hand. You push against the clay mound with the palm of this hand, and you want that arm to be completely still. That's how you know your clay is centered. Now many first-time potters think their clay is centered when it behaves like this, but it's always worth your while to just give it another shot. Cone up again, cone down again. There we go. The next stage is opening your cylinder. So for that, you support the clay mound with your one hand and you push down in the center with 2 fingers or a thumb or 1 finger of the other hand. You would have seen that I added a bit of water in there, otherwise the clay sticks to your finger and it can go off center again. When you've reached to about a centimeter or a little less than that on the bottom, you can open the cylinder. So to do that, you simply pull your fingers towards you. Go back a bit to just smooth that base. There might have been a little protrusion in the middle that you can just remove. And doing this is important because it compresses the clay and it prevents your clay from cracking when it's drying. Now we're ready to do our first pull. Now because this is a cylinder, we're going to pull slightly to the inside. Wet your hands again. I like using a sponge, but you can also just have a knuckle this side like that, or whichever way you prefer to do it. Make sure you get all the clay from the bottom, and then you simply lift up. A common reason why wheel thrown projects flop or why pots get wrecked is because of an uneven wall thickness. And that happens for two reasons. It can happen because you don't control the speed of your wheel well. For those of you who have a wheel that you can set to slow, medium or fast, it's easier. But if you have a wheel like mine where you actually have to control the speed yourself with your foot, then it can be tricky. And the other thing that influences your wall thickness is the pressure of your fingers. So try to keep it absolutely even as you go up. I'm now just going to smooth out my cylinder a bit. Make this a little wetter. Usually 3 pulls are enough. Let's do a last one. That's it. All that remains now is to tidy it up. So we're going to just smooth that bottom again using the sponge. The sponge also absorbs all the water that's pooling in the bottom of your pot, which you want to get rid of because that can also cause cracking. You can just smooth the rim also with the sponge. Some people use a little bit of chamois or a piece of rubber, like this one. You just wet it and then you drape it over your rim. to get it nice and smooth. When you throw something on the wheel, it always has lines on it, and that is just from the spinning motion. You can get rid of this by using a rib. This is what we call a rib, and there are many different kinds. You get wooden ribs, you get metal ribs, you get hard plastic ribs like this one. This one is a more soft rubbery rib that I prefer to use. And then you just press your rib against your pot, spinning not too quickly, and you just draw the rib up against the side of your pot, and that smooths out all those lines. There's nothing wrong with the pot that isn't smooth. It's a matter of personal taste. Some people like to show in the pot how it was made, and others want to get a feel of something that was almost machined at the end. So I'm just going to do a bit of ribbing inside as well. Okay, finally, to finish this, I would use a wooden knife like this one, and I would just cut into the base at an angle. Then I could use that wooden knife as well, but I just have a different one that I prefer to use to remove this excess clay. Okay, so we finished throwing the pot, and now it needs to be removed from the wheel. When I just started pottery not so long ago, I always threw pots on an extra bat that I would put on the wheel. And then I would just remove the whole bat with the pot and set it aside to dry. But what I found was that the bottom of the pot wouldn't dry so well, and it would take a really long time before I could get it off the bat. And sometimes in doing so, I would also damage the pot. So I've just trained myself to overcome the fear of handling a wet pot. And what I do now is I cut the pot off the wheel, and I just set it aside on a wear board, which is just a piece of wood, to dry. And I've actually found that that works much better. So here goes. Let's do another one. They're not quite even, so there's a lot of room for improvement, but it was a good exercise nonetheless. Okay, so that's 4 small cylinders done. I'm going to rework that clay again. This was just exercise, just to practice my technique. And I think it's very important to do that from time to time, to not have any lofty ideal of what you want to create, but really just to go through those repetitive motions and just practice, practice, practice until you've got it perfect. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to my channel if you would like to have more clay dates with me in the studio.